Hello, Betty.
Hi. I was
How
just
are
getting
you
ready
today?
to leave again. Do we have a quorum?
I don't know if we actually need one tonight, but I'm sure a bunch of people will be jumping on momentarily. I was having a
This is,
little,
no, this is for the economic development, right?
no, this is, that's tomorrow night. This is just straight in. We have the library first. Hello, Ms. Carmen. How are you?
Okay. No wonder I couldn't get on.
From the library.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Very
Good.
well.
How
How are
about
you?
Oh my goodness, it feels like May outside, doesn't it?
Oh, it's
Oh, I
beautiful.
know. So nice. Such a good change.
It is a good change.
Gotta turn the light on now.
Please give folks a few more minutes. I'm in attendance.
Okay.
Hello, Ms. Shoemaker.
Hi, Mick.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Melissa. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
how are you? It's good to
Yeah,
see you.
doing all right. Oh.
Want to eat, honey?
Thank you.
Hello.
Brad.
How are you?
Hi, Brad.
Hi, how are you doing?
Not too bad. How about you?
Hanging in, the better weather's helping.
You getting settled into your new digs?
Yeah, it's starting to feel like a home, which is nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that. It takes a little while.
It does, for the first month and a half or so, you're just surrounded by white walls, and little by little you make it into a home, and we're getting there.
Yeah, good.
Where'd you move to, Brad?
I am living at Hillside Village on Townhouse Road off of Mix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right behind the Arden House.
Oh, good.
No,
Yeah.
Abdul.
Which I absolutely love it. You're so close to everything, but it's still, you're set back a little bit. And I mean,
Yeah.
I was walking the dog the other morning and you can't hear traffic or anything. It's just,
Thank
just
you.
the birds, and it's great.
It's
Sounds
nice to back
nice.
from the road like that.
That's really nice.
Yeah. You're great access to the highways and everything, but like set back and nice.
No
and quiet.
problem.
Beautiful. Great people over here too.
Oh, that's good.
The dog, of course, is still learning that she has to share her space with other dogs, but we'll get there.
Sometimes they never learn, Brad. I have to tell you. I had
Yeah,
a
I'm starting to wonder if she will.
that didn't want to share anything with any other dog.
I forget because I haven't logged in this way in a while. When you go to on the browser, when you go to when you log in through the email through your browser, is it do you have to, is it our name or is it our district that we're logging in with?
The email is the
Wow.
name,
District.
E. Wetmore, or, at.
Mine has
Hamden.
district down.
Oh, it's still district? I thought it was our names now.
They
But,
have
but
a
it's not
switch
letting me.
to it.
That's why I was.
Huh,
It might be
Okay.
both, maybe.
I
maybe.
still have access to it on my other device. I wanted to log in on this computer as well. So I'll pull up the other device for now.
Hi, Adrian.
How's everybody doing?
Hi.
We're here.
Hello.
Hello, Adrian.
We are.
Got Jerron.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, Suzanne, hi. Yeah.
Hello, Kathleen.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jerron.
Hello, John.
Hello.
Hey, Jerron, how's it going?
All right.
Need a pen, please.
So 5, Mick.
Yeah, why don't we get going here? Just checking, make sure. Looks like we have folks. Okay, so we'll get going, and just want to reiterate kind of what I said last night. You know, the idea of this evening is for to give our department heads time to come and brag about their accomplishments and tell us their vision and their plan for their departments. We don't have a whole lot of time to be able to ask questions tonight, but of course, it's very important that we get all our questions answered. So I ask folks tonight to kind of try to ask questions that we can then look for the department heads to bring back during our scheduled department deliberation time. We just don't have time tonight to really get into it. As I used with a metaphor last night, this is the appetizer, the main course is to come. So, so I will ask department heads to give us a brief presentation about their plans and their budget. And then we'll have some brief questioning, and then we'll move on to the next person.
And can we just clarify for the department heads, what time frame is brief for them, please?
10 minutes or so. We'll hope to keep it around then.
Thank you.
And then we'll about 2 minutes per council person. And then, of course, already there's been one round of questions sent to the administration for department heads and the budget in general. And any more, please keep writing them in, send them to Ms. Renta, and we will then send them to the administration. And as I said, we will have time for greater deliberation with the independent deliberation schedule. All right, so with no further ado, Ms. Kim Klein, you're up first.
Thank you. I will try to be as brief as possible. So good evening, President McGarry and honorable council members. Last year, when I presented to you, I was very wet behind the ears, so to speak, and I still feel very new to this process. I've been told that tonight is not so much a appetizer, but is more like speed dating, which I have not had the opportunity to employ. But being a librarian, I've read about it. So I do know that each dater gets to share a bit about who they are. So if you will indulge me, I want to share with you a little bit about Hamden Public Library. We are your library. We are your mind's palace. We are your imagination's playland, your free escape. Serendipity, well, it happens here. Currently, we have a staff of 22 full-timers and 15 part-timers. 60% of that staff are proud Hamden residents. The other 40%, well, we're proud to serve Hamden. And it is my greatest honor to lead this amazing staff as they fulfill their mission of the library. And despite the many obstacles this year has thrown our way, the Hamden Public Library has succeeded in delivering library services beyond the bricks of our buildings. Here are some of our achievements of fiscal year 20 through today. Within days of closing the library facilities for on-site services, the library staff turned our website into a digital branch, complete with programming, the ability to make digital library cards, and real-time reference support. Public demand for content and information inspired us to create our own videos to help businesses apply for loans, to walk users through using technology, always keeping people up to date on the latest science regarding COVID. We promoted our online learning portals, and we expanded our digital collection to include additional music and film streaming apps, free to users. Using our staff's professional knowledge and passion for service, we quickly created our own YouTube channel to offer children's programming on demand. And although we were all in separate locations, the staff became more unified in its mission to help Hamden weather the pandemic by learning new things, such as using Slack for program management and staff development. We mastered Zoom, using it for programming, professional development, and 3 times a week staff meetings. We discovered the connective power of social media. Instagram was used to help children learn the alphabet, to host community scavenger hunts, and to keep people informed of new services. Facebook helped to promote our programs and was quickly a remedy for answering real-time reference questions. Zoom became our versatile program room where we hosted open mic nights, book discussions, cooking demonstrations, couponing clubs, gardening workshops, health seminars, and family support groups. We partner with the town's arts and culture department to give Hamden residents a creative outlet for telling their own pandemic stories through the Pandemic Journal Project. As pandemic restrictions changed, well, so did our response. Staff found ways to serve the computer needs of Hamden citizens by setting up an outdoor computer lab. Contactless lending has been perfected to an art and is greatly appreciated by users at each library location. Hundreds of physical items are lent each week. People of all ages have become regular users of our grab and go bags. Each week we see new families using our homeschooling collection or finding our recorded story times online. With help from the Hamden Land Trust and the community gardens, we are establishing a seed library. We've looked beyond our needs, and we've asked how we could be a brighter light for the town. Staff worked to connect homebound patrons with materials and helped with food bank distribution. Toy, food, and winter clothing collections are a norm. We give books, calendars, and goodie bags to elderly services for distribution at their holiday celebrations. Our children's department facilitates card making projects to make sure the clients of elderly services receive holiday greetings. The Hamden Library has shared a charging station to the overnight shelter, so people who are staying in the shelter can charge their devices for free. We are partnering with small businesses such as Knight's Cuts and Alibaba's, one of my favorite restaurants, to extend connectivity into the neighborhoods. We have examined how our buildings serve the public. We've changed a lot of our spaces so they can be safer and easier to use by all people. Our buildings have been adapted to meet the demands of a pandemic world and a world that needs to take public health more seriously. And quite frankly, we've used a lot of donors' money and state grants to get that done. A private donor helped to pay for expanding our computer public area of Miller so that when we reopen for people using the inside of the building, we'll have a much more spacious computer area. At Brundage Community Branch, an anonymous donor enabled us to replace the moldy flooring in the program room. The Friends of the Hamden Public Library have paid for updated furniture for this branch as well. The constant support of this donor enabled us to temporarily underwrite the editor position for our eBlast weekly newsletter as we transition a staff member into that role. Likewise, a donor has paid for the library's 7 programmatic licenses for Zoom. This way, multiple Zoom programs can be offered at once by different staff members. Private donations and the state grant increase the number of hotspots we can offer to the public, and it's enabling us to work with the Key Center in expanding connectivity, as I mentioned before. These grants and gifts make the library more user-friendly and are giving us the tools to do library work outside the library. With the death of George Floyd, we began to assess the role of the public library in creating an anti-racist world. This affects all elements of the library: collection assessment, staffing, and our programs. Days before the pandemic closed the on-site services, the New Alliance Foundation awarded the library a 3-year grant, Ready for the Grade, to reduce summer slide for early elementary school students. Although COVID restrictions prevented us from delivering this past summer, our children's staff quickly came up with a solution. They designed and hosted pop-up libraries in conjunction with the Board of Education's summer meals program. So families got to take home a meal and new books to read together and literacy activities to do together. In many ways, the pandemic has transformed the library into a more community-focused institution, which is what my vision for this library is. We miss our person-to-person interactions, but we find encouragement in the many ways our patrons, the donors, the town, and the state have recognized our endeavors as an essential second responder during this pandemic. My vision for this library, for the Hamden Public Library system, as I've mentioned before, is to make sure we become a stronger community anchor. Now, an anchor is something that other things can pull to and also holds things in place. And as an anchor, using that metaphor, we recognize that we have to gather people, agencies, institutions around with us to extend the mission of the library. I've asked for 2 part-time positions that would help us do that. One would be serving in the branches as well as here at Miller, allowing us to do more outreach with our partners that we have developed this past year and delivering such things as pop-up libraries in needed areas. And I'm also asking for a full restoration of our materials budget. This past year, we went on a diet. We cut many things that we didn't need in the collection anymore. But on that diet, we also discovered the many things we weren't providing for the town. We acted like a bookstore, and we're not a bookstore. We're your public library, and you have endowed us with a mission to be your town's information hub, as well as a recreational space for all ages and lifelong learning for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Karen Klein. And I really do appreciate all the hard work that you did and your staff did to adapt to this changing world and provide for our community. It's much appreciated. Just, and I'm going to open up for questions here. Just one quick question. It was two part-time positions you're requesting?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to put that down. Those are the, they're down as librarian 1 and social media coordinator.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks. And we'll open up to folks with questions. And again, we have to go kind of quickly and efficiently here, folks. So 2 minutes per, please. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you. Good evening, all. I guess my main question, which I'm going to ask every department, in terms of a capital budget, I know we are looking at your budget. In terms of a capital budget, what are the key things that you would like to see that would help alleviate the work that you're trying to do? You mentioned doing some pop-ups or some stuff. So have y'all thought about purchasing a vehicle? Like what other things would help to implement besides the things that you put in for your normal budget?
Well, one of the things that we've talked about at each of the branches, as well as here at Miller, is finding a way to extend the library's envelope out where people can enjoy it. So as you might all remember, here at Miller, we have the huge planters right out in front of the library. We often fantasize about doing away with those planters and extending a library plaza out there where people could actually sit outside, access our Wi-Fi, and we could even do programming out there. We could show movies and whatnot in that small area. That's one thing that we could do. We would love to get a mobile unit. Right now we are using the van that the town has provided the library. That's how we do most of our homebound deliveries. Our custodians do that in conjunction with our circulation staff. And we did, through the grant that we received from the state, we bought a mobile unit. I'd roll it out here to show you what it looks like, that allows us actually to take technology to places, well, we'd have to plug it in, but to like the parks and stuff like that, where we can make library cards and actually set up a hotspot so people can do computer work, as well as maybe doing story times and crafts and other things like that.
Just to follow up to that, have y'all passed on a capital budget to the administration? And is there a certain, like y'all asked for materials, would there be things in a capital budget in terms of materials that you're thinking, or machinery to help process new materials, so on and so forth?
Well, I've worked with Paul Coleman at assessing particularly our different buildings, Miller and community in particular. Here, one of the things, and it just happened today, again, is we had somebody stuck in the elevator. Our elevator is 40 years old, and it's the only way for people to get up and down. We have no other way for somebody who might be physically challenged to go upstairs. They'd have to go on the elevator. So again, today just really hit home how some of the infrastructure of this building, Miller itself, is outdated and needs to be updated. Included in that is, if you've been in here when it's really busy and crowded, you'll notice, or even when it's not, you'll notice that sound carries. And one of the things I would love to see is acoustical paneling added to the building so that it is a little bit more like a library, and that you can direct sound and keep sound from going in certain areas. Additionally to that, there's a lot of leaks, and we have trying to figure out where the leaks are coming from. Even though the roof was repaired just recently, some of the heavy rainstorms that we've had this past year have revealed that there are still leaks and there are still problems. And I know, talking to Paul Coleman just recently, one of the big needs for this building would be a boiler.
Well, I thank you for those questions. Just to respect my colleagues, I will follow up with you offline. I thank you for informing us.
Thank you, Councilman Farmer. Mr. McDowell.
Thank you, and thank you, Director, for being here this evening. I want to, you all were asked to do so much this year and given so little, and you did it remarkably well. And in particular, right, if nothing else, the library is meant to be a source of information. And the way your website has been laid out, I mean, from everything, not just public health information, right, which has been done in a stellar way. I mean, you can go, I don't know if enough people know that they can go onto your website and see information about vaccine clinics, see information about, you know, the latest updates. But I mean, even other community oriented things like, I saw some information about composting on there, right? So all this important information that is often better organized than the town website itself. And you all have done an amazing job making sure that information is accessible in a way that the town can learn from significantly. So thank you for doing that. I wanted to ask briefly, I think you made you laid everything out clear. I don't have any questions at this stage. I know this is supposed to be short, but I want to ask you about overtime and Sundays. It looks like you'll be asking about the same in overtime. You've asked to do a little bit more, like $8,500 in overtime for Sundays. What does that get us? I'm not sure. I want to make sure I'm looking. It looks like 12 weeks. Is that sort of like a once a month kind of thing? Obviously 12, right? How do you determine that? Or is it seasonal and you do it a couple times during specific seasons?
Well, I have to say that I think that some of that might have to be adjusted. It might just be 10 Sundays because when I gave that figure, I forgot to include overtime for a custodian. And obviously, which is a really ridiculous thing to forget, it's one of the lessons of the pandemic, is that it's really handy to have a custodian on staff when you're open to the public. So one of the things that I would envision is instead of offering 10 consecutive Sundays, where you get people used to coming on Sunday and then suddenly you take it away. It's kind of like Charlie Brown playing football with Lucy. I do think that you could do like a first Sunday of every month and partner with different organizations in town, different departments in town to highlight whatever they're doing, almost like an open house. So like Arts Commission could do a concert. We could have a democracy school at the library on a Sunday, something like that. And it would be always, let's say, the first Sunday of the month.
Okay. Okay. Have you felt, obviously a lot of things have gone remote this past year. As we, and I say this with all, because we never know what's going to happen tomorrow. We know that the situation is evolving day to day, but as we look forward to a future where we can start opening up and offering, you know, more of the services, the in-person services that we would have expected in 2019 with appropriate public safety protocol, of course. Do you feel that this is enough to help residents get back to where they need to be? It feels like I would have expected actually needing a little bit more to get people back to where they need to be. So I just want to have a good idea of, we're hearing from residents that there are certain things that they expect if they pay these taxes, right? Well, pickup is one of those. Transfer station Saturday hours is another one, right? And the library is another one that I've heard about personally quite a bit. So I would imagine that you probably have a better idea of that holistically than any of us do. So what are the expectations out there? What are people expecting? And is this enough to get us there?
I think for this coming year, as you said, every day is a new day and has new challenges that come with it. So when the budget was drawn up, the vaccines are still rather new and fresh. But with that said, I think this is a transitional year. And one of the things that we did do in the summertime was we had an online survey, and out of 2,000 people that we solicited to survey, we had 500 responses, which was amazing. As anybody who knows who's done a survey, that's an incredible response.
Yeah.
Those are 500 unique responses. And what we discovered was that people want everything. And I can appreciate that. And one of the questions is, what do you want as we move into a post-pandemic world? People want to still have the freedom to attend a program on Zoom. A lot of parents have found that they were able to go to programs they were never able to go to before because they didn't have a babysitter. Or again, with the YouTube and our children's department and the incredible programming that they've done, we've had parents say, you know, it's really cool because my child can watch their favorite librarian over and over and over again. So my answer to that is I would always like more. I could use the librarian technical assistant was frozen this year. I would love to have that position restored. That position, again, would enable us to do more technology teaching. It would also free up staff, again, to be outside the library doing things with the partners that we've developed and helping them also serve people robustly. I vision us really becoming more engaged.
Yeah. Great, thank you. That was helpful. And one quick thing, perhaps we should connect offline about this so we're not taking up too much time. But I know in years past you have requested security presence at the library, or it's not specific, but there's been requests, right? And we've had conversations about how to handle that in the most cost-efficient way. Do you feel that that problem has been adequately addressed? I see that there's no request for a security presence here in your budget. So has that been adequately addressed, or is it still something we need to work on?
You're probably not going to like my answer, but yes and no.
Perhaps that is something Ms. McDowell has expired. Maybe we could make a little note of that and return to it, or unless another council member has that same question. But we are going to have to identify things, and then we're already behind. So
we'll put a bookmark in that one. Thank you, Director.
Yeah, we can come back to that. Ms. Horsley, you had your hand up as well?
I don't want to take any more time on this particular department, so let's go ahead and move on. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll stay well, and thank you for all the hard work you're doing.
Thank you very much, and thank you. Next up is Elderly Services, Ms. Burbidge. Oh, Ms. Burbidge, you're muted.
I'm going to make mine very short. We are a staff of 5. We've never closed. We have provided contactless services, social services, such as energy assistance, rent rebate. As this year, energy assistance is going to be extended to June. Rent rebate starts in April, so we'll be overlapping 2 major programs that help our seniors and disabled get by every day. Tuesday, which was today, we had meal distribution of boxed meals, and we partnered with another entity that helps bring crafts and gives them out with the meals. We also put out books on a day like Hello? Okay. And then we put out books for the seniors we call, and they come in and they take the books for free. Again, this is all outdoors with mask restrictions. Most importantly, we have helped 458 individuals get vaccinated. And this is not including then arranging and reminding them about their second vaccines. We are helping with the Moderna with the health department. Please keep in mind that we have also reached out, and the library has stepped up to help. You can imagine the phone calls and the strategic planning that has to go in place. And now I've been tasked with making sure mobile vaccines help the individuals that are truly homebound. And that's going to be a work in progress, hopefully closer than later, you know. And I've also received a lot of help with Chief Merweed. He's been my sounding board, but he's also been there to put out his hand and make sure all this happens. For example, next Tuesday, March 30th, we will have another 243 people coming in for their second dose. We are also in the process and continue to help seniors in need with the grant assistance. In fact, we just processed 2 needs today. But we have gone through 45,000 last year, and this year we've already spent
accumulating in some of these folks'
quite a bit.
yards.
Getting a lot of feedback. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, I'm just going to very quickly mute all, and then if you could unmute yourself to speak, that way hopefully we'll take care of that feedback.
Okay, thank you, sir. So
We, Ms. Burbidge, unmute yourself, however. I muted all participants. So if you could-
okay, sorry, now I'm unmuted. For example, with the grant, we helped 2 individuals at Davenport Dunbar, where some of our most needy seniors are located. But that continues, and there's more in the works with the grant to help people. We also have, with that grant, set up accounts with Apex to make sure people who need durable goods are depends, things of those nature, that we can get them and order them from Apex, and they'll deliver to the client. We also have 2 accounts with oil delivery, so we can take care of any emergencies, whether they happen at 4 or 5 o'clock at night. On weekends, we got people that will help us out. And again, we have accounts going with, again, with the grant monies. So just to give you an idea of how we're trying to expand that service. And we continue to wish and can't wait to the day we can be with our seniors. This has been a very tough time for our department. We are not going to see some of our seniors come back because we lost them during this pandemic, and that's the difficult part. But we're excited for them to come back because we love them, and they're like family to us. They're all our moms and dads, and they are anxious to come back too. And we will do it in a sensible and by the guidelines of the town.
Thank you very much, Ms. Burbidge. And again, if folks could, during our questions, if we could focus on questions that will be answered during our deliberations, that would be helpful. And we have to kind of focus in here because we still have a lot of people to get to and a lot of great stuff. And Ms. Burbidge, just another note of thanks for our, from the council. The important work that you guys do is a real benefit to our town. So thank you very much. And Ms. Baez.
I'm sorry to break your rule right off the bat, but can you notify us, Ms. Burbidge, when you have put together the in-home vaccine delivery? Can we just get an email when that happens? Because we had a few folks who wanted that. That's it.
Okay, they will, and yes, I will, because they will need an assessment. We'd all like to have the vaccine delivered into our home, let's be honest, but they have to be truly assessed to make sure that they're homebound, because some of these people are just afraid to get out, or, that's not the people. And just so you know, though, the clinics that are happening in North Haven, we can make special arrangements for individuals who can drive up and get the vaccine. But yes, I will do that. We are in the process of trying to get that partnership going.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Baez. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Ms. Burbidge, for all that you do. I have 3 questions for you. First, is there any capital concerns that you have for us, or anything that that we should take into account in terms of investing for a capital budget? The second question is, I see the transportation agreement. It's lower than last year. Obviously, seniors aren't necessarily traveling as much. But I just wanted to ask you about that. You requested for 171,000. The mayor put in 130. So are there any concerns, or are people using transportation as much from your perspective? And then the only last question is, I know last year we cut your department by 20,000
More
So
than that.
what we can do to help our seniors. I know a lot of the food and gas and other resources, some of that is uh, in the Keefe Center. So is there anything that you see that we should supplement on that end?
Addressing the capital, I think the biggest downfall isn't, it's the building, as Melissa pointed out. I mean, there were days that I wore a coat in office. We do have a situation in that building with the heating and the air conditioning. Just cannot get it right. In fact, I turned the heat up one day and all of a sudden the ceiling blasted with some water. So um, we do have structural challenges in that building that should be addressed because, you know, once you get the elderly in there, they need to be comfortable too. Okay, in regards to the transportation, that's cyclical, and yes, it has been down, but I've seen some uptick and then it goes down, but it's this year will be, and we are, just a reminder, our department is very good about giving money back. We're very frugal. We're very conscientious of that, of the town's needs, and we do not ever, you know, spend frivolously. Not that anyone does, but I do expect that that transportation will kick up once we get over this hump. I don't know, because with the variant, I don't know if that's going to scare more people into it. As you know, most of the hospitalizations and deaths have happened in the elderly, so they are reluctant to get out and mingle, especially on buses, but they are doing it because they you know, 1,667 just through February have taken opportunity with that. So I do expect it to go up. Again, I don't know about, I'm not a science major here. I don't know what this vaccine will bring about.
I guess, just to clarify, um, it, so in your opinion, it'd probably make more sense for us to up that number. And if anything, as you said, y'all have been very generous and very conscientious of the town's needs. So it'd probably make more sense for us to up that. And if the need isn't there, you would inform us and give us back.
Yeah, we always make sure the town gets anything that we have left. Yes.
Okay, and then just to clarify, the last question was, do you see any needed resources that we may need to up from the Key Center side, like gas assistance, anything like that? I know a lot of the stuff you do is grant wise. Is there anything that we should potentially subsidize or supplement on the town side in case the need arises, as the moratorium might end April 1st? So, you know, all of us on the advocacy side are concerned. We don't know if it's going to be extended. So just asking you from your perspective.
The food necessity, I believe is working out well, as there is another food supplier for seniors in Hamden besides the Keefe Center. Um, and also the Agency on Aging has stepped in and helped people, seniors with grocery deliveries. So if anything, I'd like to say that I don't think that's a crisis as of now. The gas, if you're talking about the cars and the gas, is that, I don't know what if you're talking about energy assistance, as you know, has been extended, which is a good thing. And some of the procedure has been lifted so that it's easier on the clients just as for this year. Okay, I don't know what next year will bring, but for this year during this pandemic, some of the restraints have been lifted, so it's going to be much smoother and easier for the clients and for the people who are doing intake. So, and they have funding too, extra funding for emergency help. I think we can make what we're doing. I don't want to ask for anything that I don't feel is a crisis right now. So
Well, thank you again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farmer. Further questions for Ms. Burbidge and Elderly Services? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Burbidge. We very much appreciate your time and your dedication to the town of Hampton.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Before moving on to the tax, in the interest of time and efficiency, Mr. Jackson, would you mind speaking to us about the capital budget plan and how we're going to go about creating the capital plan and budget moving forward? And then maybe we could ask department heads to be prepared to speak to that during the deliberation phase. As we are kind of a focus now on our on the operational budget. So maybe we could clarify how we're going to go about determining the capital budget, and then we can kind of ask the department heads to focus in on that during when we have those deliberations, so we can kind of focus in tonight.
Certainly, and so I hope to be able to present toward the end of the month, beginning of next month, draft capital improvement plan for the council. It will be heavily focused on infrastructure. And so we heard a little bit about the buildings, obviously roads and sidewalks. We always need to keep an eye on technology and items like specialty items like the transfer station may be included in that capital plan as well. So I'm hopeful to have that to you in the next 10 days or so for your consideration on a parallel track to this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So, Mr. Farmer, could we gather up your information quest to all departments to also, during the deliberations, speak to the capital as well? And, we can focus in on, getting the information we want them to talk about next time or during their individual departments.
Sounds good, Council President, through you to, when that time comes, if we can get the capital budget, is from my understanding, when we get budget per charter, we're supposed to get the budget and the capital at the same time. So I just want to make sure, last year we did not get to it. And I made contention of it. So I just want to make sure this year pass and get through the capital budget. But I will follow your leadership.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a little wiggle room. They're supposed to present a plan during, so it would be nice to get that very soon. So thank you, Mr. Jackson, for your attention to that. Next up, tax office. Did I see Ms. Flynn here? Yes.
Hi, good evening, all. This year has certainly been a challenge collecting taxes during the pandemic, especially with the building closed. My whole department, I'm very proud of. They've really stepped up to the challenge. Everyone has gone above and beyond with their efforts. They've all shown very true teamwork. We've done everything possible to assist and accommodate the taxpayers during this time. Like I said, my staff has really been terrific. As a reminder, per the governor's executive order, our collection cycle was extended again for this January's collection period. So people now have until April 1st to pay those taxes. So it'll probably be several weeks after that before we really can see how our collection rate is looking for this year. So I'm here for any questions that you may have on my budget.
Thank you, Ms. Flynn, and thank you for working hard through this, through all these trying times. It is much appreciated. Do you have questions for Ms. Flynn this evening? Ms. Wetmore.
Thank you. I noticed in your staff that you're requesting a part-time cashier.
Yes, I'm requesting to reinstate that. We had that position in the previous fiscal year, and then it wasn't funded this year. So I'm hoping to get that back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wetmore. Mr. Farmer.
I I am pretty supportive of all that y'all have done and are doing. I guess my only concern is just making sure that we bounce out job descriptions so that we don't that the scope of the work that needs to be done is clearly in the job descriptions as we hire people, so that way we don't run into any personnel issues. But if it lightens the load, I think your requests, the department's requests were very reasonable. So that's the only consideration I'd ask from the department.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Further questions for Ms. Flynn and the tax office? All right, Ms. Flynn, thank you very much for your time and all that you do for our town. Without you, we couldn't do anything. So much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Here, safe travels.
Our next department is the registrar's office, and I see Ms. Mentone is here.
You're muted?
Rosa,
Okay, can you hear me?
now
Yes.
we can hear you, yes.
Okay, okay. I don't know. Tony was trying to call in. He was having trouble with his connection. So I don't know whether he's on or not, but I'll handle the questions. Just
Well,
where,
there's two of you. Is one of you
Rose,
Tony?
there's somebody out in the audience with a phone number. What's his phone number, Rose?
oh, his home number, I'm not sure. 248 something.
Well, I got the 288-5350. That's the only one out there that could be.
Yeah, that's the only thing, unless, no, I don't think that doesn't sound like his cell
So
phone either.
who else is in here as Rose Mentone? Did he use your link, Rose?
No, I don't know why I appear twice.
Oh, okay. That's
That
all.
happens.
Okay, getting back to our budget. For those of you new to the council, our budget is divided into two parts. The first part, I think it's 10401, are line items dealing with the general election every November. The second half is, I think it's A8 or something. That's all primary counts. We do separate our budget into the general election and primary counts. Now, last year was a very interesting year, as you imagine. Our office was closed, but we were able to handle many requests for registering voters online through the state system, as well as people coming to the office by appointment. We have a heck of a secretary who isn't paid as a secretary, unfortunately, and she really runs the office when Tony and I, who are the only part-time department heads, are gone. Carmela really runs the office, and she did a yeoman's job last year. But in fact, if you see our cover note, I think from August to November, we registered over 3,000 new voters, which is unheard of. But it was kind of a crazy election that year anyway. And EDR, which we, thanks to Suzanne Burbidge, we were able to use the senior center. We registered close to, I think it was 400 new voters on that one day. The only thing we did differently in our budget is we reevaluated the salaries for our assistant registrars and bringing their salary more in line to their duties. And that allows us to raise the salary for our moderators, who are the most important people election day, and also to increase the salary of our head moderators and our assistant, the absentee ballot counter. The other thing we did in our budget is we added $1 to the food account, which is interesting. This year, what happens is that we normally we allow $11 per worker for food. And last year, we had to tell them bring their own food because of COVID. Normally, our assistant registrars go out on their own and spend money, usually over the allowance, and bring food in. But this year, we decided not to do it that way. But because the $11 per person really, for a 14-hour day, $11 does go too far. So what we did is we upped the food allotment to $12 per person. And the other thing we did was the daily rate for the workers, we're going to pay them minimum wages, goes up to, I think, $13 in the fall, I believe, or before the election. So with those changes, we were able to lower the amount of our salary account in the line item, which I think you've got a revised version today. But the line item for the assistant registers should read, I think it's $9,000 instead of 16 or something. And like I said, that allowed us to change some other salaries there. But otherwise, what we expect this year is, of course, we expect, well, we don't expect, but we prepare for a possible municipal primary in September, which would be the mayor, the council, and board of ed. We always prepare for a two-party primary, even though in the past our history has been one party, but we can't assume that. So we have to finance for a primary in September, and then of course in November the general election. And this year in the spring we may have, which we've had in the past, town committee primaries. And again, we have to assume that both parties will have primaries. So our primary count is going to be more than normal because we're looking at possibly two primaries, one in September and one in I think it's March. Otherwise, our budget is just, unless the law says we can eliminate election, we can't, change our budget money very much. So most of our numbers are what we spent in the past for workers, supplies, etc. So there isn't much leeway we have in our budget, unfortunately.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Fantone. One thing that I'll ask you to think about for when we, as we move forward, both in the budget process and as we move forward, just sort of with the town, there has been a lot of discussion about polling station possibilities at Quinnipiac University as an additional polling place that would be available for people in the first district, as the polling places for the first district are not in the first district, which is unique, and obviously Quinnipiac would be in the first district. So I don't know if you could just put together, some thinking about what the costs of that would be for the town, and just to start moving that concept forward.
Yes, Tony and I have discussed that we could put something in writing for you to read about. We're aware of your interest in that. We did reach out to Quinnipiac for the EDR day, but with EDR and even election day, the polling place has to be open to all people. It can't be just Quinnipiac students. It has to be any voter in Hamden who lives in that district. So, unless Quinnipiac wants strangers to come on their property, which was a problem with the EDR, which is why we moved it back to the senior center. So there are some legalities that Tony and I have to look at. And I'm sorry he's not on right now. He might be able to address it better, but we're aware of your interest in that. We'll discuss it. Of course, a lot of this is going to depend on how the lines are drawn with the census too, or with the state, what they do with us, where we draw the line. So we're also meeting with we've met with the Charter Revision Commission to talk about possible changes in that respect as well. So we're on the case and we're aware of what's going on, and we'd be happy to work with all of you to make sure our elections are run fairly and honestly, and which I think they are at this point. So hopefully you all had a good experience with our office in the past as you ran for office, and we hope to continue that way.
It's always been very, very, very easy, Ms. Mentone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Ms. Mentone, and thank Tony as well. Council President, I'm glad you asked that question. You read my mind. The only other question that I have for you, Ms. Mentone, there's a good chance that absentee ballots are going to pass in the legislature. I know this was a concern in the past. Is our material budget for that, or is that something that we might have to be cognizant of and loop back to you closer to the end of session?
Yeah, the only problem with absentee ballots is that if we get the volume which we had for the presidential election, then it affects our office because we have to add extra teams of counters, which has to be one from each party. So the only thing with the absentees is that we may have to add more personnel, but that's something we can adjust as we go on once we know what the law is stating. And usually the municipal election doesn't get a lot of absentees for some reason. So, you know, we have to really play it by ear as to what the volume will be in any election. So, but we'll deal with it if there is a change.
I'm sure when you are on the ballot again, it will be a landslide. Thank you for all the great work that you do. And thank Camilla for all the great work she does as well.
I will pass it along to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Any further questions for Ms. Mentone in our registrar's office? Okay, seeing none, Mr. McDowell.
Sorry about that. Thank you for being here this evening. I had a quick, and forgive me if I had to step away quick for a phone call. So forgive me if this is repetitive, but redistricting, how do you anticipate that is at all going to play a role in your budget? Are there any unforeseen expenses to redistricting as we approach that? Or are we not sure yet? Or would
No, we're not there yet, but that becomes a different line item that gets added to the budget.
To the next budget?
Well, yes, I don't think it's going to happen this year because
Right.
by the time the census stuff comes back, I think we're probably redistricting in 2013, maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, whatever year, 23. I don't know what year we're in anymore.
Cool.
But
That's what I thought. I just know that census data is trickling out, and I just want to make sure that that's something we're on top of if we have to be. All right. Thank you very much.
No problem, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Further questions for Ms. Mentone and our registrar's office? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Mentone. Have a very pleasant evening, and thank you for everything you do.
No problem. Thank you. My pleasure.
And next is our mayor's office budget. Mr. Sendroff, Mr. Sendroff, will you be speaking to us on the mayor's office budget?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Council President. I'll speak and then I'll hand it over to the Deputy Chief of Staff, Mr. Donnelly. So hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Adam Sendroff. I'm the new Acting Chief of Staff. I'm formerly of the Keefe Community Center where I worked for almost 4 years. And I'm new to this part of the budget, but I'll highlight a few things about it and then pass the presentation over to Patrick, who has worked through many budget cycles with the mayor's office budget. I'd say this budget is fairly straightforward, and we try to do a lot with it as the mayor's office is the nerve center for government center in the town. The budget is mostly salaries driven with 5 full-time staff, and that's really the bulk of it. The salary line is down from the 2019-2020 line because a position was moved out of the mayor's office this fiscal year. Other items here include supporting town events. We do things to build community and foster a sense of civic pride. We want to bring our citizens together through these events, these celebrations, and these remembrances. We also support the Memorial Day Parade and Veterans Day ceremonies to honor those who have served and sacrificed. This budget supports training and professional meetings for staff across the range of town departments. We want to encourage professional development amongst our employees, and so we could best serve our residents. After salaries, the largest expense is municipal service fees. And these are membership fees to pretty important organizations, including the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, the Southern Connecticut Regional Council of Governments, or the SCROG, and now also new is the National League of Cities. And there are many benefits of being part of these groups, including learning best practices, regional collaboration opportunities, policy analysis, and grant opportunities. I know when I was at Keefe, I could tell you that I really relied on CCM and SCROG quite a bit. And if I had a question about almost anything, I could call them. So that's the mayor's office budget in a nutshell, and I'll pass it to Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. Sendroff. Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you all, and thank you, Mr. Sendroff. I think that that is a wonderful encapsulation of our budget. I think that really Mr. Sendroff's synopsis that we are the nerve center is absolutely correct. As many members of the council are aware, our very minimal budget for basically all of our other line items other than salaries forms the basis for much of what encompasses Hamden Pride and Hamden events spring, summer, and fall outside of the operations of the arts department and other departments that works with it. So without really repeating Adam, I'm here to just answer any questions we might have related to line items and to take any notes for details that need to come for the next meeting that we have together.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. The first question or request I would have, line 102013636, the expense reductions townwide efficiency efforts. When we get to our deliberations, if we could have a sort of a detail of what will be the plan to achieve these reductions in efficiencies. You know, if there's someone in charge of that, or what the plan is to achieve those, that would be helpful for that line. And in terms of then in the positions, if we could have, I'm well aware of the Director of Town and Board of Ed Legislative Affairs, what he's been up to, but if we could have a listing of what's been done in that position, that I believe would be helpful too, sort of things of the benefits of that position. So if we could have those for when our time comes, that would be most appreciated. And it looks like we have Ms. Horsley.
That was my question, so thank you.
To answer the both of you, certainly, we will come prepared with whatever information the council is looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Okay, it's strange.
I'm pretty sure my hand was up.
Yeah, it's funny. On my title, you're last, but on the list, you're first, which is strange. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Council President. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Seeing that oftentimes some of my colleagues remind me we are the fiscal authority. If you can send to us how much money that liaison position has brought in terms of SCROG and CCM, how much money in terms of grants and stuff they've brought in. I'd be interested in seeing the money side of what we're paying and what we're getting out of it. The only other question I have through you, Council President, to the administration, the department projection was 392,000, and the department request was 397,000. Is that because of? I'm pretty sure there's no like bumps in terms of. Is the administrative secretary? Is that a mandatory bump? Is that a step or is that a raise?
That is a unionized position. So anything out of an annualized contractual raise is a step. So that is a step, and I will make sure that that is clarified for the council by the time we get to our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I was confused about that. So thank you, and look forward to partnering with the administration.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell.
Thank you. In addition to the request in terms of what has been delivered from our presence up in Hartford, is it possible to get a list of legislative priorities that we've already, like what have our legislative priorities been? How has that gone? And what are our legislative priorities for this current session and into the future? Is sort of what I'm looking for. as that was the purpose of this position. Also, I know that, there was a necessity during this past fiscal year, or I should say this current fiscal year, to utilize that position to help out economic development, since there was a shortage of help there. Is it possible to get a clear delineation in terms of how much space or time was intended for or ended up being used for economic development, and whether or not that'll be something into the future? Of course, we want our mayor's office staff to be able to bounce around and help out where is need be, but I think it's important that we keep a record of that in terms of where folks ended up and where we expect folks to be over the next year. There has been, of course, a restructure, and we're looking at a bit more of a restructure in this budget. So just having an idea of where folks might be stepping and helping out would, I think, be helpful for us to understand not only the roles that these positions play, but also the value that we get for each dollar spent on those salaries and fringes.
I think that is a very reasonable request, Councilor McDowell, and we will make sure that our staff comes prepared to the next meeting to showcase exactly what the deliverables of the position have been, what we are expecting to come down the pipe over the course of the fiscal year, what we're working with the BOE on to accomplish, and also the many instances of our staff working with other departments to help them out. We will come prepared with all of that.
Great. Thank you both for being here this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman McDonald. Ms. Wetmore.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to do the presentation. I heard you mention the National League of Cities. I thought the council voted that down. So are we a member of that? And if so, how much did it cost us?
I'm going to have to look into exactly how we did acquire that membership, and I will return that to the council. We will go over exactly what fees are applicable to that membership and if it's something that we want to budget for the future. It is the council's discretion, so if ultimately it is not, something that is favorable, we can adapt and work with that. But I will make sure that our Director of Legislative Affairs, who was instrumental in getting us that partnership, is here to explain exactly how we came about that.
I'm just wondering, since I believe, if my recollection is correct, that the council voted it down. But I'm not sure. I don't want to say that that's positive, but if they did, I would like to know why we have it.
I believe it was part of another proposal, and that the administration was able to proceed with membership outside of the other facets of the proposal. I will find out the clarifying details for everyone.
Please do, and how much it cost us. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Weber, if memory serves, it was the use of the town seal that folks had umbrage with. And so that portion was definitely rejected. Ms. Shoemaker.
Yeah, I remember that we didn't want to hand out use of the town seal, and we didn't want the commercial outreach to the residents that was going to fund the membership, and that's what we voted down. I distinctly remember we didn't have a separate vote on the membership itself. So I'll await clarification along with my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shoemaker. Further questions for our mayor's office?
Just a point of clarification. If we could get the contracts for these things that we're signing up for, I think that'd be helpful. And if that could be just a practice for all the departments as they follow back up with us, so that way we can look through, because I know some of these contracts have sunset dates where, there's a level of free services and then we have surcharges. So I appreciate that.
Will do.
Mr. McDowell?
Thank you. And forgive me for taking a second bite. I was also, in addition to the list of sort of subscriptions, I know there's organizations like CCM that we ascribe to, right? and it would be helpful to get an idea of what we get in return for that. I know that in years past, there's been conversation. I know for myself, personally, I've spoken out about, I think it's something like 167 of 169 municipalities in Connecticut are a member of CCM. So when they're up in Hartford lobbying, they're only lobbying in our favor half of the time or less. So, it would be helpful to just sort of get an idea of the other benefits that we get by being a member, so that we can assess that expenditure and make sure that it's still in the best interest moving forward.
I can jump in on that really quickly. When I left, it was the first year in history that 169 out of 169 communities were members of CCM. We get access to their labor municipal review. So we know immediately every contract that is settled. So as we continue to negotiate contracts, we know what the state of the art is. As a very specific example, and certainly worth the cost of membership. We have access to the tiered charts of salaries, so we know where we're competitive and we will know where we're not competitive, because they send out every year. Okay, if you're a secretary, this is in Seymour, this is what you get, and we can see if we're competitive. It's more helpful when you're trying to get a public works director or something like that, because you don't want to go into the market in a bad place. But those are just some of the quick and dirties of the value of the membership.
And I completely understand that there's value to that membership. Like I said, my biggest concern is that as we take a bigger presence, I should say lobbying up in Hartford, we're also supporting an organization that, right, and this is sort of the reason why two municipalities, and I think maybe there was a third, but I know there was a third considering. I don't know if they went through with it, but it's why there's been a few municipalities considering leaving. Or one of the reasons is because CCM, when they're up in Hartford, right, you can't advocate for, say New Haven and Andover at the same time, right? That's just not something that is possible to do, right? So that means that CCM is up there advocating for legislation that is not in our best interest, at least some of the time. And so to continue contributing to that financially is not in the best interest financially of Hamden residents. However,
well, maybe this is something we could ask for an analysis from the administration.
Right, that's exactly what I'm asking for, right? Because I know that there's other financial benefits that we get, and so long as those financial benefits outweigh the negative side of things, which I think they do, that's all I think we should be assessing every year. So if we could just get that rundown, that would be helpful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Further questions for our mayor's office staff? Seeing none, we thank you very much, Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Sendroff and Mr. Jackson. And we'll move on to Public Works and Parks and Recreation. I believe Mr. Caesar, always good to see your smiling face, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I just want to make a couple of general statements about the proposed budget. Actually, I do have to say that it's probably one of the best budgets I've been handed in my time here. My asks were responsible, my asks were real, and pretty much through the process here, the mayor's office has funded, what I believe to be a necessity this year. So I just want to point out a couple of accounts. If that's okay with you, Mr. President, I'll just want to start that way, or would you like to start a different way?
That sounds just fine, Mr. Caesar. Why don't you go ahead with that?
Okay, so we have a couple of larger accounts that I want to just bring light to. Number one, waste removal contracts. This is a contractual, obviously a contractual account. The mayor did increase my ask by $150,000 with the intention on implementing a bulk trash, a curbside bulk trash pickup this year, which I think is a great idea. I did not request one. I'm just being consistent with, with years past. We're in tough financial times right now. I think it's a phenomenal service that I want to offer myself. I have no problem that we're adding that, but I am always tasked with putting forth the most conservative budget that I can. And so I applaud him, his office, for adding this. I think it's great. We're in process right now of talking with the trash hauler. I was in a meeting with them this afternoon, talking about different scaled back versions, possibly. What we're looking at right now is a possible one-time pickup. The way it used to work, where it would go throughout the whole month, and now it would be a one and done type of thing, which I think is far, far better than nothing. Than to offer that. We're looking at versions of that. We don't have anything etched in stone yet at this point to bring forward to the council. We went out to bid for bulk trash pickup 2 years ago. That bid has now expired. So it would have to be either we're contemplating what deal we're getting proposed from our current hauler, or we will also contemplate going out to bid. We did go out to bid, competitive bid the last time, and we only received one return bid, which was from our actual current hauler. That's not to say it wouldn't be different this time. So we're looking at all the options as far as that is concerned. That's one of the big ticket items, and I'm happy to say that I'd love to see the bulk return to what we offer. I did notice a $100,000 reduction in my tipping fees request, which my request has been is super conservative per se, because I want to talk about a touchy topic that I did not want to get into tonight, but I guess we could talk about it really quick. The scale. I kind of went to a point where once we're up and running, which I do want to tell you, we have made tremendous progress. I was in a meeting yesterday with the mayor's office and finance office. We're really at the point now where we're trying to procure a credit card processing vendor. We're very close to doing that. And you all should be seeing something in the next month or so regarding fees and how it's all going to come together and work. We're pushing to get it online for July or shortly thereafter. I see no issue with that whatsoever. We're very, very close. I know we've been talking about this for a while now, but I met with Finance Director Jackson yesterday at length, and I feel very confident that he's going to help push us over the finish line as far as what we need to do to get this thing actually up and running.
Promise.
Other than thank you. Other than that, I mean, I would just open up to questions. We have, I guess at this point, if anyone has any questions, sorry to be long in my conversation. But.
No, thank you, Mr. Caesar. And that was actually, you touched upon the exact thing I was going to ask about. The tipping fee scale. It would be a wonderful thing to get that scale online. I can't speak for the entire council, even though I kind of do, but I don't know if we can really support that revenue line, unless the scale, we have something in hand that says the scale is functional and coming online.
I absolutely agree with you, Council President. I absolutely agree. And I will be prepared to remove that request if I felt, when we actually deliberate, that it wasn't going to come to fruition. But there's no reason at all, and I mean it honestly, to believe that it's not going to finally happen. It's been a long time coming. With that said, I mean, the reduction in tip fees is good, because I believe that once we have a scale online and folks have to pay for bulk, I believe you're going to see less material there. It's a fact. I mean, we can just now. I think once you have homeowners, contractors, like I myself, for example, if I'm doing something at my house, if I have to load a truck, drive to the transfer station, pay, unload the truck, drive back, I just may assume just get a dumpster myself. And then so it's just that much less material that we're going to handle at the transfer station. So I believe it will reduce almost by default. I want to talk very, very quickly about staffing. We have, we're in a place now where I feel we're at our our bare bones staffing, and it's worked out very well. As you all know, it was a tremendously busy winter. We were able to get through it. In this budget proposal, I'm requesting mayor is proposing to fill the vacant superintendent of trees position that fortunately we've been able to cover since the vacancy on the passing of God rest his soul, Anthony Green. We've been able to have a bunch of guys kind of do it by committee, but realistically speaking, that's not a way to run such an important division like trees, because honestly, we've been doing not much more than cleaning up after tornado for the last 6-8 months. We haven't really had to be fully engaged in trees between the work that goes on with the UI, watching that work, supervising that work, and the many, many tasks at hand with the day-to-day operations of the tree superintendent. The request in the budget is an entry-level funding for that position. There is currently one vacancy in a maintainer 2. We are going to do a reorganization per se and kind of reclassify positions as they become vacant. You will see an addendum or an ask by me to reduce one of these salary lines down to a maintainer 1, which is a labor position. It's at the entry level, it's like almost a $7,000 a year savings. We can work with these different positions now. And as other positions become vacant, my intention is to have 3 maintainer 1s that will be in place of the truck driver position, which is at a higher rate of pay, and still be able to be as efficient moving forward. But I can only do that once these positions become vacant. So I'm happy to report that. Other than that, that's about all at this time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, we have a long deliberation ahead of us, but if there's any questions for tonight, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. A couple of things I have, if you could, we don't have to address them now, but if we could speak to them during the deliberation phase. I noticed that the litter enforcement officer has an increase.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have to do the deep dive now, but if you could just prepare that for us.
It's off the grid. I had sent a memo about the detailed changes in that with my submission. I'm not sure if you saw that, but yeah, I have it's cost neutral. The money essentially for that position, the change is just coming from a different line item because that position has basically been paid out of 2 different lines. So we're just kind of cleaning it up and looking to make it an actual fully funded position with no benefits, nothing, non-union, strictly 19 hours, just like to be in line with the recycling coordinator position. We've actually taken duties that used to fall under the recycling coordinator. I know Mr. Shoemaker can attest to this, that we now have taken some of those trash totes have become a major job in this town as far as we're handling the inventory, dealing with residents that need new totes, broken totes, etc. That used to inundate the recycling coordinator. And once we took possession of the recycling coordinator position last fiscal year, one of my first orders of business was to remove that responsibility from recycling coordinators so he could focus on recycling. And with that, I'm happy to say, with the help of a few of you, we are now ready to launch a food composting program out of the transfer station. We're working on Earth Day, where folks can. We've arranged with a vendor to folks can buy home composters at a discounted rate. We're really able to move forward with all of that, and which honestly we have not been able to do. And I understand. He used to work in the mayor's office, and it was, they're busy with stuff, and he was buried with this stuff, and I get it. But we're just happy to report that we're able to, recycle different tasks of sort. But it also, on the other hand, increase the responsibilities of the litter enforcement officer. And another thing I want to add to that position is I spoke with Chief Sullivan about this at length, and actually Councilman Farmer recently, we had a discussion about it. We wanted to be able to increase the responsibilities and for lack of a better word, the authority or that the litter enforcement officer has right now, as it stands by ordinance charter, he doesn't have the ability to actually issue fines or warnings of sort. We basically do that work, and then when it reaches that point, if it's a zoning infraction, we turn it over to the zoning enforcement officers. And again, they're busy with other stuff. I'm really going to move forward to try to be able to have myself have the ability, or my designee have the ability to issue fines, infractions of sort. I'm not looking to do that. Hopefully we can work it out. I would definitely look to issue warnings first and give everybody the opportunity to comply. But quite honestly, there's a lot of folks out there that don't comply, and I just don't think that that's fair to the rest of the residents of the town who, you know, take pride in taking care of their properties and in areas like that. So apologize for being long-winded with this, everyone. I just want to tell you, we got a lot going on right now in Public Works, and just happy to talking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Caesar. Actually, that light portion of it was something I wanted to talk about, but you got way ahead of me. Also, you know, perhaps not for tonight, but you know, when we're in your deliberation, if you would be able to speak, you know, flesh out some more of the details of your partnership with the BOE, minority recruitment for summer jobs. I think that's a great program. Just like
absolutely
about that. And then the final thing I also wanted to point out, you know, we are committed to bulk trash here, and you know, we want to make sure that folks have access. Otherwise, we'll just get dumping problems around town, which you know, something we all
I agree.
So I think that is something important for us to work out, especially we should all keep in mind, we did speak last year of, you know, we were trying to cut costs as we could, and that is one area we did, but we did speak to getting it done in July. And we could see if some folks would prefer October. I've heard some folks saying, let's do it October, but we did make a commitment to say, like, we're going to do it in July. So I just think that's something for us to consider.
And Mr. President, I do want you to know, I do agree with it. I'm okay with it, but you just, the only reason I didn't propose it, you know, I'm tasked with coming up with as conservative as a budget as I can.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a luxury, but it's a tremendous luxury. I'm a taxpayer. I'd love to be able to walk stuff out to the curb right now, because I've been harping on my teenage son to start earning his keep. And one of the things he could do is clean out my shed and bring it to the curb. It's a tremendous benefit. Yeah, I'm just, you know, it's a tough spot, as you know. I mean, but I have no issue. I hope we do it. And as far as July or October, at this point, it doesn't really matter. Just concern was there was a lot of talk about July, but I mean, it's fine. I mean, because I don't know, so some folks are, you know, are under the impression that July is a sure thing, and I believe it will become one, or a bulk pickup will become one. So whatever we decide, you decide. I'm flexible either way. July or October is fine with me.
Thank you, Mr. Caesar, and I've taken up enough time. Dr. Horsley.
Hi, Mr. Caesar. Thank you so much for being here, and for all that you do. You really serve the town so well. I just want to understand a little bit more when we do our deliberations about, I think we should be able to charge more once we have the scale and the credit card. Like, we should be able to, there are not transfer stations in most of the communities around us. And so people bring trash to put into Hamden taxpayers are paying tipping fees on other town trash. And I just think that we should be able to bring in more revenue. So I'd like to understand that, as well as, is there a way that we could bring in revenue for mulch? We have all that mulch there, it's free for people to get, but like, is there a way? I just think we could do more to bring in revenue for the services that you're already providing. And I really appreciate that you're working on the composting and making sure that we do reduce the trash that we're putting on into landfills. And if there's ways that we can expand that in the future, probably not this year, but even having a compost bin would be hopefully my ideal in the future for Hamden. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mr. Caesar, for all that you do, especially in the southern part of town. I had a couple of questions for you. I would like to suggest that we up the Anthony Green Memorial Fund by $1,000 for printing fees. Uh, I just think it'd be smart for us to throw in money for materials. I'd say the same for the fire chief when it comes up, just so that we're covering all of his expenses, because we're going to be partnering with the schools. I think it'd be pertinent just to make sure having those materials out. I also want to offer to any department that wants to go into the community, I will walk with y'all hand in hand to knock on people's doors to make sure that we have people applying. So any department head who wants to take me up on that, to definitely follow through. The question that I have for you is the fuel, um, the diesel fuel. Do you believe that is enough money in the account to cover our diesel fuel costs? And maybe Councilwoman Shoemaker might be able to talk to the potentiality of hybrid cars and stuff, and how that might bring down our fuel costs. I just wanted to understand that from your perspective.
I can answer that question now, Mr. McGarry, or how do you want to?
Sure, if you think it's not too, if it's not too long, go ahead, and then you could maybe save some for
No.
deliberations, however it works.
In short, Mr. Farmer, that was an excellent observation. The change in the diesel fuel line, in the previous contract we had with the trash hauler, All American Waste, and prior to that, Trash Master, they used to, by contract, purchase diesel through us, essentially fill their trucks at our, it was all recorded, everything was done that way. So we used to have to order like approximately 50,000 more gallons of diesel that they paid for. It was fine. It was a wash. But in the previous contract that we had, that was a benefit that, that we extended, to each other, and just decided that it was in the best interest of everyone to cease that practice. So they no longer now do that. So we no longer have the need for that much diesel fuel. So compliments to Mr. Farmer for picking up on that, the differences in the request. So that's basically the very quick version. I am all ears to Mr. Shoemaker about possibly more efficient vehicles. We've always had this conversation. Kathy, I see you're smiling, and we'll be happy to have it again and continue that dialogue moving forward.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Caesar. And Ms. Shoemaker.
Yeah, the heavy equipment you use is going to be the final frontier on that efficient vehicles front. But thank you. No, I wanted to just say, and let's don't talk about it now. This is getting long, and we still have a couple more departments to do. But there's a lot happening in the solid waste realm statewide. I'm partnering very closely with the recycling coordinator on tracking that. And it would be good if at full deliberation time, we could bring forward some of the emerging possibilities, and there's some cost savings that are being estimated. Tipping fees are now up near $100 a ton. They've doubled in like the last 2 or 3 years. And the whole state is in crisis, so there's a lot of attention to this. And it would be nice if we could have more information at deliberation time to see what the possibilities might be. Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, Ms. Shoemaker. Mr. McDowell.
Thank you. And thank you, Director, for being here this evening. As we assess what worked well and what hasn't over the last year, are there any other services or hours or anything else that we haven't gone over that you feel we ought to be reassessing in terms of what you've heard from the community? I asked the same question of an earlier department in terms of, the taxes that we're asking people to pay, right? There's certain services that we all have discovered over the last year were much more important to people than we thought were. So it's important that we learn from that and move forward accordingly. So either now or maybe later on when we come back to your budget, is it possible for you to provide anything else you can think of that you think we ought to be thinking about reassessing in terms of its importance to the community? I don't know if that's a now quick list, something pops to mind, or if that's like you'll let us know later if something comes up.
I'll be very quick, Councilman. That's a great question. Saturday hours at transfer station. My ask would include, I like to be conservative with this, at least one Saturday a month at the transfer station. These are really the biggest things that I've heard between bulk trash and Saturday hours. It was a tough year for a lot of folks that just, quite honestly, let's be realistic. It's hard to get there if you're, just a regular 9-to-5er like most folks are. It's not easy at all to get there. So that's something that I budgeted for. I've requested it, and the mayor has funded me for. So we could talk further about that at deliberation.
Okay, great. One other question, just so that we're prepared when we revisit it on deliberation. And forgive me, I don't know if this is a question for you or for Director Jackson. Do we have a quote on what that might look like in terms of dollars? Or can we have a quote on that when we return to deliberation?
You'll have an exact quote. Rule of thumb, it basically costs $1,000 every time we're open on a Saturday for half a day. So that's a very quick math.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Things get cut off here.
No, we can hear you, Councilman.
I was muted. I'm sorry, Ms. Wetmore.
And thank you. Thank you, Mr. Caesar, for coming tonight. I just have one question about the trees. They have tagged my trees 3 years ago to be taken down. Are they still doing that? Is the UI, I see private people taking their contractors taking down trees, but are they taking down the ones for the UI?
The UI will be getting back into their circuit work. So it's been 3 years, Ms. Whitmore, really for that long. I'll inquire about that part of the circuit, what the delay has been. But yeah, they're back doing that. They're working on a capital project now, actually down in Whitneyville. There's a lot of pole replacement that's happening. So let me inquire tomorrow about that, and I can get back to you privately about that.
Okay, because it really, I don't care. I was just wondering if they still had the program or what, because the trees.
Yeah, they haven't been doing any of that work. It's going to start back up with very shortly, but it's been kind of delayed with the weather.
Okay, no hurry. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Wetmore. Mr. Alston.
I won't take long. I just say, Mr. Caesar, thank you for the budget. I'll save some of my questions. I'll save my questions for deliberations. I do see that the mayor has tasked you on some line items, which I'm looking at as well. So we'll talk about those.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Alston. Do we have any further questions for Mr. Caesar and our Public Works Department?
Thank y'all for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And our next is our Fire Department. Chief Morweed.
Good evening, everybody. Quite a bit has transpired since we last met to discuss the fire department budget, the ongoing worldwide pandemic and the impact on our community, a hurricane, a tornado, multiple structure fires, and the long list and quantity of other emergency calls that are contained in the budget request package that I mailed to the council last Friday. Through it all, we were able to meet community expectations of our service. Our firefighters pushed through the pandemic, with nearly 20% of our workforce being sickened by the virus. We aggressively managed quarantine policy and procedure to ensure that illness did not spread throughout the entire department at the same time or cause risk to the community through accidental transmission. We remained ready to respond, and when the time came, the Hamden Fire Department, along with other town departments, partnered with QVHD to deliver the Moderna vaccine to Hamden residents in the first ever town-run pandemic vaccine clinic. At this time, we still have 2 firefighters out on compensation and struggling through pulmonary rehabilitation, trying to prepare themselves for a return to work. I've said before that the fire department is a multi-million-dollar business that does not have the ability to fail. We absorb capacity and use the same resources that have been in place for 29 years. In the last 20 years, the town has added 917 new individual addresses, but not one additional firefighter. During the same period, we have had not less than 22 structure fires annually and have averaged 41 per year for the last 4 years. But our additional call volume has risen exponentially. In the past 16 weeks, we've responded to 3 fires in 3 occupied apartment buildings, each with more than 100 residents. We adjust, evaluate, and reallocate our resources on an ongoing basis. This is the definition of flexibility, and we are good stewards of our public funding. We protect $4.5 billion in structures, not counting inventory, for your community investment in fire and emergency services. Fiscal prudence begins by establishing town budget priorities. The fire department is the safety net for the Hamden community. Records show that more than 60% of our medical calls are for Hamden residents greater than 60 years of age. Our most populated fire district, the area surrounding Station 2 on Circular Avenue, has more than twice the population of any other district and the highest concentration of multifamily housing. According to our community risk reduction numbers from the Fire Marshal's office, 40% of our fire activity took place in this district in calendar 2020. Unlike our expanding call volume, if you examine 10 years of the fire department budget, you will not see exponential growth. In fact, you will see comparatively very little growth at all. During this decade, the fire department has never been more than 6.1% of overall appropriations and has been as low as 5.3%. The increase in the fire department budget since 2012 has outpaced the inflation rate by only 8.5 points. Are you purchasing anything today for the same price you paid in 2012? Me neither. We have changed our model of increasing our stockpiling inventory for medical, maintenance, and general use to no more than 90 days in advance in order to hold on to cash reserves for unforeseen events. We do not spend down or subscribe to the use it or lose it budget mentality. Some would call that an austere management style. It's been said, and I believe that managers are satisfied with preserving the status quo and leaders plan for the future and show people the way. This legislative council and the Fiscal Stability Committee have said essentially the same thing. My job is to lead this department into the future. Managing to the status quo and the bare minimum required to meet the community's emergency demands and the safety of my people is a poor model, and it is unsustainable. Do not buy into the groupthink that fewer firefighters will save money, when in reality, it only shifts the financial burden to other areas and is directly inverse to community risk reduction goals. There is no science or industry consensus standard that supports that proposition. Our run volume and risk exposure demonstrates the need to add staffing for an additional engine company, and this should be part of your budgeting planning for the future. Part of leaning forward and planning for the future is redesigning how the fire department manages our records, measures our progress, determines our weaknesses, and improves our efficiencies. We are currently working with SQL-based firehouse record management software that is essentially unchanged since 1998. It will no longer be supported in 24 months. We have a separate platform for electronic patient records, a third for training and vehicle maintenance, and interface issues with each. My budget proposes combining these systems into a cloud-based suite managed by the parent company that owns the Firehouse brand. The specific company is ESO, and they are the sole source provider for what we are trying to accomplish. Combining all fire department records management, interfacing with 911 and central communications, keeping the department HIPAA compliant and our patient records secure, assisting with inventory control, providing real-time maintenance records and per unit cost, providing measurement metrics for research and evaluation, established a unified fire training CME and records platform, interfacing with Yale's patient software Epic for patient follow-through, outcome quality control, infectious disease exposure risk for our employees and our third-party billing company, and taking all of this off the Hamden servers at Government Center and relocating it to a secure cloud-based environment with 24-hour IT maintenance. This is planning for the future. It is good management, and I am asking you to support this initiative. In your budget packages, you will also see a continuation of our 20% PPE replacement program to reduce the occupational cancer risk for our firefighters, and our 10% replacement program for SCBA bottles to remain OSHA and DOT compliant. As you know, these items were formally included in capital plans, and I appreciate your support in moving them to operations over the last 2 fiscal years. For the same reasons, I have also included $40,000 for the required replacement of fire hose, both attack and supply line, and an additional $45,000 in general maintenance for anticipated large-scale mechanical failure. If we know we've experienced these large-scale maintenance costs over the last 3 fiscal years, then it is both reasonable and responsible to budget for them now. The budget package you received from me is forward-leaning. It defines our mission statement, our risk management position, community expectations, departmental standards of cover, an explanation of staffing, fire district layouts, daily operations, our ISO rating, my budgeting practice, and our 2020 call volume. It contains our plans to address diversity in the fire service and a pathway forward. In short, it is the most comprehensive package the department has ever presented because it is critical that you as representatives of our community understand the depth and complexity of the service that we supply and how it applies to every neighborhood, every commercial property, and every industrial complex. Thank you for your attention this evening and for your thoughtful consideration. I look forward to working with you in the budget process.
Chief, thank you so much for yet again bringing us very comprehensive and detailed budget, and your explanations are always incredibly accurate and clear, and just thank you very much for that. Just a couple things just to clarify, and then I think I'll ask one for deliberations, but the mayor has in his budget in a new position, firefighter B.
No, that's an entry level position. There are different steps within the department. It takes 5 years to become entry level firefighter B to go up to A3. So they're all firefighters. It's just union step increases.
And just an oddity in the budget for one of the firefighter twos does not have the 42 hours in the column. Is that just a strange error, or is there one?
That's exactly an error. The firefighters work 42 hours a week. That's the average week. It turns into 2,184 hours a year.
Thanks, Chief. And the last thing, if when we get to your department for deliberations, if you could just speak a little bit more about the funding mechanism for your minority inclusion diversity program. I think it's a laudable thing to be working on, and I think very important to make sure we're funding accurately. So if you could just talk to that more when we're in our deliberations, I think that'd be very helpful.
Sure. In a nutshell, it has everything to do with the training line item and the substrate line item. Because if we're gonna remove some barriers, then we still have to provide for training and backfilling, which is where the money goes. But I can itemize that for you better. There is a reasonable explanation of it in the package that I sent as well.
Okay, thanks. All right, thank you, Chief. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Ruby. I look forward to partnering with you to make sure that there are more homegrown heroes such as yourself from all different perspectives, views, and socioeconomics. So I look forward to that, as well as genders, of course. I had a couple of questions. I know we're going to save our capital questions for some other time. And you have done great work in terms of implementing, this 911 paperwork program to bring in some revenue, and talked about working with Quinnipiac for increasing towers. I would love at some point to hear about working with other towns to figure out cell service, because sometimes when we have calls, right, we have New Haven or Hamden or other parts of town both responding to situations and duplication of services and that. And towards deliberation, I'd love to talk more about that. I guess my questions for you, you've talked about over the last 20 years, much has changed in town. Personal law has not. I guess my question, how much money have we saved and how much money can we save if we up our ISO rating? And then my next question to you is, do we need more people on the fire side in terms of inspections, as we've had quite some development as you've spoken about, and I feel there are certain buildings that are frequent offenders of code violations. So I guess my question is, on that side of the fire department, do you feel that there's a need for more inspectors as well?
So in the Marshals Division right now, which is their job descriptions are largely defined by state statute. We don't have authority to inspect single family homes, as you may or may not know. The authority goes to multifamily occupancies and then places of assembly, and then kind of builds out from there. Most fire deaths occur in the home, and most deaths take place overnight. So our inspectors work in multifamily housing. We had to slow down a little bit during COVID because people were reluctant to let us into their homes, and we didn't want to overexpose our employees as well. But we're back out there doing it now. The office is able right now to handle what's required of them by statute, which is a very good thing. We're supposed to be in every multifamily house every year. Are we absolutely getting into one every year? Probably not. But we're closer now, and we've been able to double the staff there in the last 10 years. So we were limping along with 2. We now have 4, and I believe they're doing an excellent job. Parenthetically, if they're the unsung heroes of the fire service, right? Because if a fire alarm, and we get there at the incipient phase of a fire and we're able to put it out, we might not even put out a press release, and you're certainly not going to see a grand picture in the newspaper. But the work has been done, right? The property has been conserved, and and the lives have been saved. And so in one of the code enforcement line that you'll see inside the budget, if an alarm system goes down in a multifamily occupancy, say up at Broadmoor, where we have more than 300 people living in one building. If an alarm system goes down, they've got 4 hours to repair it, or by statute, I'm going to put a firefighter in there with a radio in order to make sure that someone's there to activate the system overnight, right? So that's part of what they do. At this time, I'm not looking to expand that department.
And if you can speak to the insurance rating that you spoke to in the past about how it can save us money. Is there any steps that we can move up? Is there anything that we can do that affects that score?
So the brief answer for ISO, and they give classes at this in the National Fire Academy. So I'm going to give you kind of the condensed version of it, right? There's 3 things that ISO looks at, the Independent Service Organization for Insurance Companies. They look at water supply, the hydrants, how often they're tested, what the flow rate is, the gallons per minute, and what our program looks like in how far it extends, right? That's one section. The second section is the 911 system. How are we taking in calls? How many people take in the calls? How fast are they able to get the calls out to the stations? And how fast do the stations respond to those calls? That's the call taking ability. And then there's suppression, and that's the fire department. How are they situated to put out fires? You'll notice in the handout that I emailed to you, there's a fire district map, and then there are 1.25 mile circles laid on top of the map that shows the area that we're able to respond to within the ISO recommended amount, which is 4 minutes. So the answer to your question, from the suppression point of view, I have to show my staffing levels, who's available 24 hours, which districts are covered 24 hours, what the pumping capability is, how many gallons a minute we can supply, how fast we can supply it. And then I have to have all the training records for the entire department. All of that is to say that if we're able to achieve a lower ISO rating, we're currently at 2. We were stuck at 4 for 20 years or so. We're currently at 2. If we're able to maintain that, or even eventually someday achieve an ISO rating of 1, the first places that will affect will be the businesses that you're trying to bring into town, and the large buildings that have a large fire protection insurance rate. So for example, commercial buildings, the commercial infrastructure, industry, if we're able to achieve an ISO rating of 1, they'll be the first ones impacted by that, by seeing a lowering of their rating system. For the actual homeowners themselves, that takes a longer time to trickle down, because it's based on when they come in there and they review my records. Are we more successful at what we're doing?
Well, thank you for the brief education. And thank you for all the work that you guys and gals have been doing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farmer. Mr. McDowell.
Thank you, Chief, for always impressive on the thoroughness and specificity on your budget. It always makes our job a lot easier to know what we're working with. I wanted to discuss the paramedic assist reimbursement. I know that in the past there's been conversation about potentially putting those funds in a lockbox to allow you to make expenditures that you need to make in the future, and also to to reduce future capital expenditures as are necessary. Is that something? It doesn't look to me like that's reflected in this budget, but it's also possible I'm missing it. Is that something you'd like to see reflected in this budget?
It's something that I think that we as a town need to consider for the future. And this is something that, when I appeared before you with Chief Baradeska some 4 years ago, this is something that we thought would be a great idea. It is done in other communities, where this amount that was taken in as revenue for a service that we provide would carry over from year to year and essentially become a capital funding mechanism for our department. And so it wouldn't be in any respect an open checkbook for the fire chief. But say, for example, you know, $500,000 accumulated in this account over 5 fiscal years, which, you know, is, you know, $500,000 in 5 years. I'm think we can do that. If I came to you with a capital project, or I came to the administration with a capital project and I said, you know, I have a project for use with this funding. You don't have to borrow it, you already have it. That is kind of the genesis of the idea. I'm not sure because, you know, I'm not an attorney. I'm not sure if, you know, if it would require a charter revision or a rules for this. You know, perhaps the finance director could speak more intelligently on the idea about that, or at some point.
Yeah, so well, I think you might be right. There might be, I don't think it would need a charter revision. I think that it would need some sort of legislative fix. But we've done it for like the animal control facility that we're working on eventually building. So it's been done before, and it can be done again through, I think, just a legislative fix. Cool. I'm glad that that's still on the radar. I guess I'll loop back with you about that offline. But I think you make a perfect point, right? If something pops up in the next couple of years, it's a major expenditure like that, you know, it makes sense for this money to stay where it ought to be, instead of then at that stage not having the money on hand and having to borrow it for 30 years. So makes a lot of sense. I look forward to having that conversation. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I mean, let's face it, a lot of the equipment we use is very expensive, right? A life pack that a paramedic carries into the house to work on someone is almost $20,000 a piece, right? These are, you know, we're using very expensive things, and we're just looking for ways to pay for that in the future.
Right. And I mean, it makes sense, right? You would it's not like you have, like you said, it's not like you have it free for all. You would have to come back to the council and transfer it out for every individual expenditure anyway. It makes sense to have that money there and to have that safety net for when your team needs something in critical fashion. We never want to be in a situation where our bond rating impacts whether or not we can access safety equipment. So thank you very much.
Any further questions for Chief Merweed? Okay, seeing none, we'll say thank you very much, Chief, for your efforts tonight and your efforts every day for the town of Hamden.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chief. And next is our purchasing department. Mr. Goodwin. Oh, there's Mr. Goodwin. Yes. So, Mr. Goodwin, the floor is yours.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for seeing me such a late time at night. I know you guys are all tired and want to go to bed. I'll try to make it quick. As most of you know, the purchasing department really services all the other departments in the town. Anything from the procurement process that you know that we do all the time. We've done over 40 procurements this year, whether it be a bid, an RFP, or an RFQ. We also do all the production, the mailing services. So even though the town center has been closed, all the departments are continuing to work. So it's actually been very busy for the purchasing department this year. And I just wanted to have a chance to try to explain some of those and answer some of the questions you have. The utility bills we go through every year, we talk about. This is stuff that's included in the ice rink, Laurel View, all the buildings. They're all still open or functioning with employees in them. So that's very important. Elections this past year, as all of you think of as the registrar's office and the town clerk, and God bless them because they've had a really long, tough year. We were also there to support them. So it's important to know that everything that goes on in the town, one way, shape, or form, we help and support them in any way that we can. So that's really what the purchasing department does. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions I may have or you may have for the purchasing department.
Unmute myself. Thank you very much, Mr. Goodwin. Your efforts every day are appreciated, so thank you. And looks like Mr. McDowell has a question for you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Mr. Goodwin. There was one thing that I think you're being humble about what your department does, and over the past couple of years, you have taken on the responsibility of managing all of our utilities. And so where our electricity and water and other costs used to be spread out amongst departments, we sort of asked you to take on the burden of overseeing those expenses, both for efficiency's sake, right? What, you know, are there places that we are paying two bills where we could be paying one, right? But also for, you know, just in terms of having it all in one place and not having different departments have to come together every time there's an electricity bill that needs to be paid. So I just wanted to point out that you have done that. Maybe this is a question for you to come back for deliberations with, or sorry, the answer that you should come back with. But if it's quick, I'm just wondering how that's been working for you. Do you feel that that's been successful? And do you think is there anything else you can think of that we might be able to consolidate in that way, if it has been successful? And go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay. No, there's a lot of things that we do that consolidates the town where we save money. Right now, we're doing diesel, fuel oil, and unleaded gas with the different departments, being Public Works and Police and Fire. But we go out and take the whole town and go out with a consortium to get the best prices. This year, the prices dropped drastically. I'm sorry, not this year, for the upcoming year, will drop drastically in January, although that was an effort that we did. Part of it was the season. Next year, I'm not sure that I can guarantee that great of a savings, but certainly being able to buy it for the whole town has that commodity of scale that is definitely worth doing and continuing. The other thing is the electricity, again, working with the economic department and development department. We also have gone out and gotten multi-year contracts that have saved us, and not only saved us money, but we know what the cost is going to be. And as you all know, during budgeting season, that's just as important as getting a good price. A commodity is something that you, depending on when you go out, bases when your price is. If the market is high, there's nothing you can do. You're going to pay higher than you did the year before. If the market is lower, you save some money. But going forward, you know what the price is going to be. So that's very important. And that's something that I work on and work with the other departments to try to achieve cost savings whenever we can.
Awesome. So I'm glad this has been something that's been successful. Appreciate you taking on that extra responsibility over the last couple of years. And as we look for other places we can be more efficient, appreciate you being a leader on that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you. Pardon my Tourette's, so I hope I did not disturb you too much. For some reason, my body just doesn't want to cooperate with me at the moment. In terms of I have a couple of questions. One is postage. I know we've asked this question in the past and before. Are we doing all that we can do to cut back on postage? And then my next question is, I see that that the mayor has cut postage somewhat. So is that something? I know it's a couple of $1,000s, but is that something that you feel your department can live with? This next question is in terms of utilities, mostly streetlights. I know there's a lot of other things around streetlights, but are there ways that we can bring down costs, and where are we in terms of that? And then the only last question that I have for you, in terms of our carbon footprint, in terms of electricity, what initiatives are we moving towards in terms of greening. So if you can answer any of those, and I would definitely love to follow up with those.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, I can say that we are doing a lot of things. Utilities, I know that the mayor cut some of them, and I have some concerns about that. We can go into details whenever you guys are ready. That's fine. As for clean energy and the town's footprint, I'd have to give a lot of credit to Ms. Shoemaker, because she has really, really taken the town to the next level. She's done a lot. She's involved the different departments, including myself. We're looking at electric cars and electric vehicles. We look at solar panels. We are looking at, again, combining all our electricity through another co-op, where we hopefully will lock in at another 3-year price, which gives us that stability. So I really think that in the next 2 to 3 years, you'll see a lot of the footprint, the clean conversation, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right. We're going to save a lot of money, and both the footprint and the town will also be a cleaner place to be. So those are all things that are positive. Right now, I know that we're working on the street audit, and I know that that's been a long time coming, and a lot of people are really concerned about how we can save money, but also do it correctly, so the correct illumination is there. When that happens, I think we will save a considerable amount of money. Is that going to happen next year? I'm not sure. The process is going forward. We are out to bid right now, looking for someone to be able to help us with the process. I don't know if we're going to see the savings this year. Was that all of Mr. Farmer? I'm sorry. I think there was 3 questions. I don't remember the first one.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
You did. It's a good conversation on conservation, and I'm glad to hear that. The last question was on postage. I'll loop back. It might not be a question for you. Might be a question for Mr. Jackson, just on whether the community could do a light audit. But I'll leave that determination up to you.
Okay, postage you had mentioned. I'm always concerned when my budget gets cut. However, last year was a very unique year with the elections. Some of it was refunded or was reimbursed to the town, which was a great thing. But people don't realize when an event happens, how much goes through postage, whether it's an announcement for the Board of Ed or whether it's for elections. So I will do my best to deal with the cut that the mayor has recommended. If I had a choice, I would ask for it back, and I will when the time comes.
And just just to saddle up next to Mr. Goodwin on that one, the Postmaster General has just issued new standards in terms of delivery, and we have to, I think, have a community conversation about how we utilize postage. If we can't, the former standard of delivery for the state of Connecticut was 1 day from any point in Connecticut to any other point. That's not what the Postmaster General is currently proposing. And so we have to understand what that means in terms of what we're sending out, what that means in terms of our delivery to taxpayers, to constituents, and decide whether or not we want to go a different route, which is a much more digital route. So we'll have to have those conversations, and we will certainly include the Legislative Council in those conversations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson and Mr. Farmer. Ms. Shoemaker.
Thank you. I just want to footnote to Phil's important information. This is a year that we're going out to bid for our bulk electricity. And I just want the council to know that we've a contract with a broker that is identified for us through CCM. This is one of the very, very important services that we get from the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. When we need a professional broker for something as sophisticated as going to auction for our electricity for 2 or 3 years at a favorable price. And we'll be doing that this season. So it will be coming to council to authorize the mayor to accept a bid. We have to look and look at that contract and authorize that. But that comes up this year, and Phil mentioned that. So we're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shoemaker. Any other questions for Mr. Goodwin? All right, so we'll say thank you very much, Mr. Goodwin. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, sir.
Good
Good
night.
night, Phil.
Remind folks, we will have a 5:45 economic development meeting tomorrow prior to the department head meetings tomorrow. That is mainly to vote on the rain garden. We talked about it in committee on Monday as an information item, and we'll vote on it tomorrow. So if, well, that's all our business for this evening. We'll say good night, everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you very much to our department heads for offering their time tonight. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Sorry, Betty, you got a question?
Up.
You're on
You're
mute.
muted. You're muted, Ms. Wetmore.
We had heard, and this has nothing to do with department heads, that's why I waited till the end.
Okay.
We had heard that the budget books were gonna be sent out besides these. Something that's happening, they were supposed to be coming from
The binders.
The
Yeah, the
binders,
binders.
yeah, I believe they're going to be hand delivered tomorrow by Mr. Jackson.
Okay.
Council President, in that sense, can we give back? It's somewhat frustrating that it's a lot of paper to 3-hole punch. So if it's not punched, like having a binder does very little if you have to punch 300 pages worth of paper. And seeing that the town has access to an industrial puncher, I think that should be considered.
Well, I think it was sent out to professional printer, and they had an issue with the printer
Yeah.
because of the formatting with the tabs, because there was a change from last year.
Yeah.
My understanding is that Mr. Jackson's team are extraordinarily displeased with this printer and will not be using them again. But be that as it may, I believe they are bound and already produced. If we don't want yours, I guess, we could, I'm sure someone else would pick it up, but.
No. Oh, okay. I thought it was just dropping off binders to us and with.
Oh, no. It should be the whole package put together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's your whole punch. Here's your binder. So long. Good luck to you. No, that's.
So Justin, the good news is this packet we've been fingering through is printed only on one side. There's a whole nother side left to make lists on and notes and all of that.
Plenty of room.
Forever the conservationists.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank you.